Okay, well, I'll remind everyone that football season is around the corner. And as we all learned with John Malone and ESPN last year, the stakes get awfully high in various cable disputes around football season. Everyone knows that Americans need their football. So, in keeping with our new tradition, Venu Sports, VENU, a bundle of ESPN, Fox Sports, and Warner Brothers Discovery, was all set to go live on Friday of this week, perfectly timed with football season. It was going to be $42.99 a month at the opening. That launch has now been delayed indefinitely after Fubo, which is a virtual multi-channel video programming distributor, moved for a temporary injunction in the Southern District Court of New York to block the launch of Venu Sports while a court hears its claims for an antitrust violation. That injunction was granted last week. So we'll read this question from Dave here. He says, "Hey guys, not that I want more antitrust talk, but this seems worth asking. Fubo won an injunction against the Disney Fox Warner Brothers Discovery joint venture streaming sports service, blocking it from launching, and I'm not sure what to make of this. On one hand, I can see the similarities between Fubo and Venu, like Spotify and Apple Music, when it comes to the App Store. Fubo can never be as profitable as the companies who are paying themselves.
Fubu,
On the
really, your
other hand,
90s roots coming through here, but yes.
I'm probably going to be calling it Fubu throughout this segment, but shout out to the year 1996 and LL Cool J. On the other hand, Dave writes, why does content have to go through a third party? What happened to the no duty to deal that we heard about all summer on this very podcast? And wasn't this whole arrangement of a company bundling content a relic of a bygone era of a cable company owning the wires in the ground? What does Fubo really bring to the table? How can it even be illegal with Comcast owning NBC since 2013? And if a formal joint venture is illegal, why wouldn't the Disney Plus Hulu Max bundle not also be considered illegal? So, Ben, we don't have to go through the whole case here, but I have a few answers for Dave. Did you have any big picture reactions to this holding in the Southern District of New York?
Well, I think it was uh, my main reaction to this was irritation with myself that I didn't predict that this was going to come. It seems like a clear holding to me, but I'll let you go first and I'll sort of weigh in on top of it.
Well, I appreciate the email from Dave because I initially had a few of those same questions. As far as no duty to deal, that is the Trinco case, and it's related to whether a company that makes a unilateral decision to not do business with someone is in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act if that decision has any competitive effects. In Trinco, the court held that there's no duty to deal in that scenario. This is different because it's three companies acting together. So for
Yep.
antitrust purposes, the joint venture is treated like a merger and analyzed under the Clayton Act for whether the business decisions of all three companies to join together and act in tandem are likely to harm the ability of competitors to compete in the market.
Yeah,
The
no,
judge
that
found
just
yes.
double down on that. Like that's the exact point. They're like Fubu, and I'm gonna say it too.
We could
Fubu
just call it Fubu here.
Fubo cannot stop Disney from launching an ESPN streaming service.
Correct.
That Disney does not have a duty to deal. What is happening here is Disney and Warner Brothers and Fox are basically colluding. And that's not legal, right? Like
Right.
the broader, we've talked about this before, and this is a bit where one of the challenges of becoming sort of a finely honed business, the sort of bullet train, to use our sort of long-standing analogy, is you're not just limited in flexibility in terms of your own decisions of what you want to do. You do become legally constrained in what you sort of can or cannot do as well. In this particular case, Disney in particular is sort of the kings of this. Is, oh, you want ESPN, the most important channel for a cable bundle? Guess what? You're going to have like these 15 other channels, right? And I wrote about this years ago when I think it was Sling launched the first sort of virtual bundle. And they had a very limited set of channels because they wanted, again, everyone wants to deliver only the good channels, quote unquote. And so they had the big ones, and then they had like Maker TV, What is Maker TV? Well, Maker TV
Nobody
is
knows.
downstream from a YouTube channel that Disney acquired. And it's like, why would they have that? Oh, because to get ESPN, you have to also get these 15 other channels from Disney. Again, 15 is not the exact number, but you get the sort of idea. And this is why the true cost of ESPN was never the $10 or whatever you paid for ESPN. It was the cost of all these crap channels that no one wanted that actually drove the value. And you think about it, for a long time when everyone had cable, the actual way to increase your profitability in the cable bundle, it was a fight between the distributors, like a Comcast or a Charter or whatever it might be, and the cable companies over, oh wait, if the customer, like, what portion of that customer payment do we sort of get? And the way that entities like a Disney would increase their share is by bundling, is a bundle within a bundle. Is like, and so we get more and more of these sort of bits and pieces. And so when Fubo comes along and we're like, we want to do a virtual cable bundle, but we only want to do sports, Disney's like, yeah, nope, not going to happen. If you want ESPN, you're getting
Buy
every
everything.
single. That's right.
All
And
the ESPN Classic you can.
and they all did this, right? The thing with the cable bundle is it actually wasn't like 75 independent companies. It was like 5 companies that were like, right. And so they were, that's how they would sort of maximize.
This is a new market, so these tactics are more transparent in this new pay TV streaming market. And what's happening here is that now, after all these years of telling Fubo, you can only buy ESPN if you're buying 8 channels from us or whatever the number is. We're now going to sell ESPN directly as part of this joint venture that, oh, by the way, is going to be cheaper than the product that you've been offering sports fans for all these years.
Right. So if Disney wanted to let Fubo just sell Disney and then go to Warner Brothers and just have TNT and just do XYZ, they could launch this joint venture, no problem. The issue is they're restricting this ability to sort of pick and choose the channels that you want to themselves. And again, you can do that if it's just your thing. You can't collude with other people to sort of do it. And that's
because collectively they control, I think the holding said 60% of sports rights in the United States. So that's real market power.
Right. And so the issue is the collusion. That's why it's not a duty to deal sort of issue. Now, the defendants are playing the duty to deal card. They're saying we don't have to sell to Fubo. And basically the again, it's a preliminary holding. It'd have to go through a case, but I think it's a reasonable injunction in that they're probably going to win because this is exactly what the Clayton Act sort of is about. You can't you don't get to collude to sort of create this sort of entity. And so, yeah, if Disney wants to sell ESPN on its own, it can do that. It doesn't have a duty to deal ESPN to another entity. It also can't make restrictive agreements with other companies that sort of favor itself and lock other folks out. And so I think it's a pretty clear ruling. It makes sense to me, and it seems like the right case. There is a sort of broad-based sense, which is like all these companies are sort of in trouble, and because the cable bundle is sort of falling. And that gets my bullet train bit, right? Like, sorry, like, would you optimize for this specific use case? Just because that use case is falling apart doesn't mean you get to undo the realities of your optimization, right? It kind of, it's like the Google and Android thing, right? Google doesn't get to sell Android and push it as being open access and then retroactively lock it down. You don't get to change the terms. And that's why, you watched that case. I know you said sort of last week, that's why they're going to get hammered on it, because they tried to change the terms. And this is a price of sort of optimizing your business, as it were. Like, okay, fine, you can do that, but then you're locked into it.
Well, and can I ask, the reason they wouldn't want to just sell ESPN as a standalone product, if only to put this particular joint venture on more solid ground in an antitrust context, the reason they wouldn't do that for Fubo is because they don't want to upset their relationships with the actual cable providers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, all their terms and like whatever, they still make a lot of money, like, from cable. Like, even though it's dwindled to like half the population, That's
So they
still
don't
a lot of money.
allow Fubo to be like way cheaper than the cable bundle because they don't want to upset the apple cart before.
Yeah, I mean,
they
number
have to.
one, there may be contractual restrictions that they can't do that. They can't sell to someone else. But number
Probably
two,
part of
they
it.
don't want to because, I think Maker TV has since bit the dust, but the Maker TVs of the world are still driving revenue for Disney. And so this goes back to the Disney Charter standoff from last year, which was really Charter saying, look, your strategy has been very effective. It's been so effective that you're basically taking more than 100% of our TV revenues. So you know what? Whatever, that's fine. We're not paying for your crap channels anymore. It's done. It's over. And that was sort of the big thing at issue here. And oh, by the way, you're going around us with sort of your streaming service sort of down the road. And what was the actual service that Charter was sort of pushing? They're saying, hey, go get Fubo. That's what they were telling us. Like, hey, why not?
Yeah. Well, and I find it interesting because I was very skeptical that this joint venture was ever going to work because I'm not sure that there's really a market for sports fans who are willing to pay $42.99 a month for some sports, 60% of sports, but only need to watch 60% of sports. I thought this was going to be a situation like Microsoft Activision, where the market would have taken care of this problem on its own, and there just would not have been much of a response to this product.
Well, no, but it kind of is all the sports you need because all the other sports are by and large on the
broadcast.
On broadcast, right? So if you get an antenna and then this sort of can fill in the pieces, maybe not a huge market, but I could certainly have seen the attraction.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I just feel like this was a joint venture that wasn't going to succeed, and then the sports forward streaming service that is having struggles of its own, and it all exemplifies how lost this industry is.
Right. No, exactly. That's kind of the irony of this, right? Like, I think it is a clear antitrust sort of violation. And also, to your point, maybe it doesn't really matter because the whole thing's screwed anyway. This is sort of you see this happen a lot where company like the natural response to a shrinking industry is consolidation. Like that's what sort of makes sense because you still want to get economies of scale. You still want to, and so it makes sense that as the market gets smaller and smaller, the remaining entities should sort of combine. And that does tend to run into antitrust issues, which is like,
right.
But if you zoom out and I think this is actually a reasonable defense of the joint venture and a reason to be skeptical of antitrust sort of generally. If the market was growing, no one would want to actually be doing this joint venture in the first place. The fact they're trying to do something anti-competitive is actually a function of the market is shrinking, and maybe this actually is a more efficient way to serve customers sort of in the long run, and not letting it happen is actually anti-customer. It does get to the bit where one of the issues with antitrust is it is interference with the market. And in this case, it actually kind of is a consumer-friendly market response that this joint venture is being mooted.
Consumer-friendly for now. I think if they were successful in driving these skinny bundle competitors out of the market, the $42.99 would be hiked up sometime in the next couple of years to be very, very expensive.
But there are no skinny bundle competitors.
Well, there wouldn't be if Fubo was driven out of business, our favorite streetwear streamer. I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
the names of these products, Fubo and Venu, it's like, what the hell is even happening here? Venu, excuse me. We're just in a strange place. And ESPN,
Venu, that's what it.
Venu, yes.
Without the E. I was trying to figure out that makes sense.
Boy,